After my injury and amnesia, I started hitting on a handsome stranger. "Hey handsome, you look really familiar, like the man of my dreams. So, what's it gonna take to make you mine? Sweet talk or a burlap sack?" My best friend rushed over and clamped a hand over my mouth. "Oh my God, shut your mouth. That's the husband from your arranged marriage. The one you can't stand." I went horseback riding with my best friend, Mia, and ended up taking a tumble and landing in the hospital. When I woke up, Mia wasn't in the room. There was just a guy standing at the foot of my bed. I didn't know him, but wow, was he handsome. A sharp brow, a straight nose, and thin lips that held a kind of restrained coolness. He was exactly my type. I suddenly remembered that before we went riding, Mia said she was going to introduce me to a hot guy. This must be him. She really is my best friend, she knows exactly what I like. Just as I was trying to sit up, Mia came back in and hurried over to help me. "You're finally awake. You scared me to death. This is all my fault. I never should have taken you riding. Are you uncomfortable anywhere? Should I get the doctor?" Mia's voice was tinged with tears. I could tell she was genuinely terrified. I patted her hand to soothe her, then gave her a look. After more than 20 years as frenemies, she should have been able to get the message. But for some reason, she just stared blankly and said, "Huh?" Then asked, "What's wrong with your eye? Does it hurt?" She started to reach for my face. I grabbed her hand, flashed an 8-toothed smile at the slightly frowning handsome guy, and said in a cutesy voice, "Hey handsome, you look really familiar, like the man of my dreams." The guy froze, his expression turning complicated. Mia's eyes went wide. She tried desperately to pull her hand away, but I held on tight. I kept going, trying to use all the pickup lines I'd secretly memorized. "So, what's it gonna take to make you mine? Sweet talk or a burlap sack? Are you gravity? Because I'm definitely falling for you. You should go look in that mirror over there. You'll see the guy I've got a crush on. So, you wanna go out with me?" The moment the last sentence left my lips, Mia finally yanked her hand free. She clamped it over my mouth, forcing a couple of awkward laughs. "Mr. Chen, maybe you should go get the doctor." I think she hit her head. The handsome guy's expression didn't change. He just lowered his gaze, gave me a deep look, and turned to leave the room. The second he was gone, Mia bolted to the door, locked it, and spun around to hiss at me. "For the love of God. What are you trying to pull now? At least give me a heads up so we can get our story straight." I was completely baffled. "Isn't this the hot guy you said you were going to introduce me to? What's wrong with a little flirting?" Mia froze, and it took her a long moment to speak. You don't recognize him?" I was even more confused. "Am I supposed to?" Mia looked me up and down, asked a few more questions, and finally came to a conclusion. I probably had amnesia. Then she sighed, her voice filled with something close to despair. "His name is Leo Chen. He's the CEO of the Chen Corporation. He's also the husband you see only a few times a year, the one you fight with every single time, the one you hate with a passion and wish you could divorce on the spot. The husband from your arranged marriage." The air was silent for a full minute. I suspected Mia was pranking me. Otherwise, how could I remember everything except for Leo? Is that even scientifically possible? Before I could figure it out, Leo returned with the doctor. Thinking about what Mia had just said, and then about my own actions, I felt a little embarrassed. Leo, however, showed no reaction, just a silent, cold detachment. After a battery of new tests, the doctor said the blow to my head had caused partial memory confusion and my recovery was uncertain. Once the doctor left, the hospital room fell quiet. I stole a few glances at Leo and was the first to speak. "Are you really my husband?" Leo paused for a moment before answering, legally speaking, yes. His tone was all business, incredibly distant. It seemed our relationship really was terrible. I wanted to say something else, but Leo's gaze lingered for a second on the gauze wrapped around my forehead before returning to my face. The doctor said you need rest. We can talk about work when you've recovered. As if he'd said all that needed to be said, he turned his gaze to a mortified-looking Mia. Ms. Meng, I have a meeting. Would you mind looking after her? With that, he turned and walked out. Watching his back disappear through the doorway, I fumed. What kind of person is he? I'm his legal wife, and he acts like that? Not a single word of concern, just cold as ice. No wonder I didn't want to remember him. Does he really dislike me that much? I thought Mia would join me in my tirade, but she was giving me a look that was hard to describe. You're the one who forbids him from getting involved in any of your affairs. You flip out if he asks one too many questions. Once, you had a fever at home, and Leo took care of you all night. The moment you woke up, you slapped him right across the face and demanded to know what right he had to be in your room. Then you moved out the very next day. In the 2 years you've been married, the things you say to him most are, get lost, and asking him when he's going to die. Hold on, sister, are we speaking the same language? I pointed to myself. Are you sure you're talking about me? Mia nodded. I hesitated for a long time before finally asking, was I always such a monster before I lost my memory? Mia paused. Not really. You're nice to everyone else. You're only a monster to Leo. After a week of observation in the hospital, the doctor said I could go home to rest. During that time, Mia gave me a crash course on the saga of love and hate between me and Leo. She had moved away with her parents in high school, so she only knew the general gist of many things. Leo and I were basically childhood sweethearts. Our families had an arranged marriage agreement, and we'd always been treated as each other's future spouse. Our relationship was pretty good. That all changed in high school when I met another boy and fell head over heels in love with him. For him, I not only broke things off with Leo but also strained my relationship with my family to the breaking point. For some reason, though, we suddenly broke up after the college entrance exams. Later, after I graduated from college, my family's business ran into trouble and was on the verge of bankruptcy. Leo used a bailout as leverage to force me into marrying him. Our married life was a complete mess. I held an endless grudge against Leo, never giving him a kind look, fighting whenever we met, and even throwing things during our worst arguments. Apparently, one time, a shard from a shattered vase flew past his face, narrowly missing his eye. It was incredibly dangerous. It got so bad that even my own parents couldn't stand it anymore and advised Leo to divorce me. But I don't know what got into Leo. No matter how I treated him, he absolutely refused to get a divorce. After hearing Mia's story, I was silent for a long time. I racked my brain but couldn't understand how I could have done those things. Although I don't remember Leo, when Mia mentioned high school, a faint image flashed in my mind. It was the back of a boy in a school uniform, riding a bicycle. I didn't know who it was. Was it Leo, or the boy Mia mentioned? After packing my things, Mia drove me home. She asked if I wanted to go to my parents' house or my own apartment. I thought about it and asked her to take me to the house Leo and I shared. Whatever happened between Leo and me, besides the me from before my amnesia, only Leo himself would know the truth. The marital home was quite far from the city center, almost an hour's drive. Before she left, Mia told me to call her if I wanted to leave, and she would come pick me up. I walked to the door, not remembering the code, but a string of numbers suddenly flashed in my mind. I typed it in. The lock opened. The interior was bright and spacious, with a whole wall of floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the river. The curtains were a light green. On the side of the living room was a large display cabinet filled with all sorts of cups. I went to the bedroom, the kitchen, the study. The style of every room felt strangely familiar. As if I had once described it to someone. I sat on the sofa, a baseless ache swelling in my chest. Fragments of images flashed through my mind, still that same boy's back, but I couldn't grasp them, couldn't see clearly. I was so frustrated. Trying to find something to do, I pulled open the drawer under the coffee table. The words divorce papers jumped out at me. I counted them. There were 15 sets. The dates spanned 2 years, but without exception, only my signature was on them. Leo's signature line was completely blank. I thought again of what Mia said, that I was always thinking about divorcing Leo. I couldn't help but smile wryly. And then the door opened, and Leo's figure appeared in the doorway. Since he left the hospital, we hadn't seen or contacted each other for a week. He looked a bit thinner. He was looking down slightly and didn't see me. I felt inexplicably awkward and, on impulse, said, "Hi." Leo looked up and saw me, stunned for a long moment, a flash of surprise in his eyes. Then his gaze fell to my hands, and his expression darkened again. Following his gaze, I looked down at the divorce papers in my hands. I quickly put them back. Don't get the wrong idea, those aren't mine. No, I mean, they are mine, but not the current me. What I mean is, those are from before. Okay, I had no idea what I was saying. Leo said nothing, just calmly averted his gaze and walked in, changing his shoes. He had no intention of talking to me. I stood by the sofa, feeling a bit out of place. Like an intruder in someone else's home. I looked down. Are you trying to ignore me? Leo stopped in his tracks, his gaze landing on the top of my head. Does your head still hurt? I shook my head. How did you get in? I glanced at him. I used the code. I guess I didn't forget everything. I still remembered the code. Another silence. Leo sighed softly. Have you eaten? I shook my head. Are noodles okay? I nodded. Then Leo went into the kitchen. When he came out, he was holding a bowl of tomato and egg noodles. Aren't you having any? I already ate. I sat down to eat the noodles, and Leo went back into the kitchen. He washed the pot, cleaned the stove, and then leaned against the sink, staring into space. From my angle, I could only see his back, tall, straight, and incredibly lonely. As I chewed on a piece of egg, that strange, aching feeling returned to my chest. After dinner, I was about to wash the dishes, but Leo took the bowl from my hands. I'll get it. I didn't leave, just stood beside him. We don't get along, do we? The sound of the running water was loud, but I still heard him give a soft ahem. I fiddled with my hands. Was I really mean to you before? Leo's hand, rinsing the suds, paused. No. I wanted to say more, but Leo had already finished washing the bowl and put it in the cabinet. Your room is the first one on the left. There are clothes in the closet. I knew. I had already looked today. Even though there were no traces of my life in this house, the closet in the master bedroom was still filled to the brim with clothes from the latest season. Thinking of this, I tugged on the corner of Leo's shirt. What about you? I still have a meeting. Leo lied to me. He wasn't in a meeting at all, he was on the phone. I cut up some fruit, intending to bring it to him, but as I got to the door, I heard a young woman's voice. It was crystal clear, he must have had it on speaker. Her tone was dripping with sarcasm. She used to cause so much drama, and now she's completely forgotten you? That's rich. When are you finally going to divorce her? If not now, are you waiting for New Year's? My hand, about to knock, froze. I held my breath, waiting for Leo's answer. A long silence. So long my legs started to go numb. Finally, Leo replied, his voice devoid of emotion, I'm not. I didn't have the heart to listen to the rest of their conversation. I tiptoed back to my room. My mind was a mess. I didn't know how to ask Leo about it. I didn't even know if I should. What happens after I find out about the past? Do we get a divorce? Right now, we feel like two strangers. But knowing what happened before won't improve the current situation, it might even make it worse. For some reason, the thought of divorce filled me with reluctance more than anything else. Even though I don't even remember him. After thinking for a long time, I secretly made a decision. I played on my phone in bed for a while, heard Leo come out of the study, and then go into the bathroom. After his shower, he went into the guest room. I put my phone away, waited a little longer, then grabbed my pillow and left my room. The light in Leo's room was already off. I opened the door and fumbled my way onto the bed in the dark. He must have been awake the moment our skin touched. I felt him tense up instantly. But he didn't say anything. He just silently scooted away. He retreated, I advanced. He kept retreating, I kept advancing. Finally, he stopped moving, his voice tinged with helplessness. I'm going to fall off. I threw an arm around his waist and huffed. Serves you right. What are you running from? I'm your wife, not your enemy. He went silent. Thinking back on my tone, I felt a pang of regret. I'm sorry, I was harsh with you again. Leo was quiet for a moment, then shifted his body, pulling me further into the middle of the bed. No, your tone was fine. After placing me in the center of the bed, Leo retracted his arm and lay back down, leaving a galaxy of space between us. Given our current situation, now wasn't the right time to discuss the past. The immediate priority was to repair our marital relationship. I bit the bullet, rolled over, and straddled his waist. Go ahead and hide. I dare you to throw me out. I have amnesia, not a contagious disease. Why do you always keep your distance from me? Leo's body tensed, his voice growing raspy. What do you want me to do? The darkness in the room was a perfect cover for my nervousness. I forced myself to sound calm. Do I have to teach you that too? Are you a man or not? With that, I took his hand, placed it on my inner thigh, and pushed it up under the hem of my nightgown. The instant his fingers touched my skin, Leo snatched his hand back as if he'd been burned, his breathing quickening. His reaction was clearly intense, yet he refused to cooperate, maintaining a determinedly chaste demeanor. I have my pride, too. After going this far, his lack of response started to annoy me. I recalled what Mia had said, that Leo was deeply in love with me, so much so that he would endure any hardship to be with me. Now I was starting to think it was all a misunderstanding. He didn't like me at all. Perhaps it was just a possessive streak or a desire for revenge. My face went cold as I pulled my dress down and got up. But suddenly, Leo bent his knee, bumping me. Losing my balance, I tumbled forward, falling into his arms. Leo seized the opportunity, flipping over to press me down, his voice pained and desperate. Khloe, please don't torture me anymore. I don't have as much self-control as you think. If this continues, I can't guarantee what will happen next. What was he even mumbling about? I didn't want to hear it. I hooked my arms around his neck and kissed him. Leo froze for a second, then took charge, kissing me back hard and fierce, so much that I could barely breathe. Leo, be gentle. I don't know which words set him off again, but he grabbed my hands, pinned them above my head, and flipped me over. After a week of rest, I went back to work. Fortunately, the amnesia didn't affect my ability to handle business matters. The company's projects were all moving forward smoothly. After that night, my relationship with Leo progressed significantly, and I took the opportunity to move back into our marital home. Only then did I realize that Leo was actually quite clingy. A few times I worked late and told him to go to sleep first, but he would always dawdle until we could go to bed together. We now sleep in each other's arms every night. Lately, I've started to come around to an idea. I feel like the things from the past, if they're forgotten, they're forgotten. It's not essential to remember them. Instead of dredging up bad memories with Leo, it's better to focus on living our future well. Life is always about looking forward. Since both Leo and I are happy with the way things are now, let the past be the past. Tonight, there's a dinner party, which means another late night of schmoozing. I took out my phone and sent Leo a message. He replied quickly, I'll pick you up. I smiled and sent him the address. I recently invested in a TV series that's about to start filming. Today, the director is getting the main cast and crew together for a meal. I was held up by a last-minute meeting and arrived a bit late. Most people were already there. Everyone stood up to greet me, and I immediately noticed the man sitting on the far side. Black hair, dark eyes, a sharp gaze, and an earring in his left ear. It was strange. I obviously didn't know him, yet I found myself looking at him, my heart starting to pound. I frowned. As the dinner began, the director made the rounds with introductions, and then I understood why he seemed familiar. The man's name was Jake. He was not only a popular A-lister who had just returned from developing his career abroad, but also the high school classmate Mia had told me I was madly in love with. I took a couple of extra glances. He was definitely handsome. Different from Leo's gentle and modest charm, Jake had a kind of wild, rebellious handsomeness. But I still preferred Leo's type. During the dinner, Jake didn't let on that he knew me, and I had no intention of bringing it up. I just didn't expect him to be waiting for me in the hallway after it ended. Long time no see. Compared to his composed demeanor at the dinner table, he now seemed to be holding back a lot more emotion. That strange feeling in my chest returned. I remembered Mia telling me that when we were together, he was the one who left without a word. Since I hadn't wronged him and was now married, I didn't want any involvement with him outside of work. I walked straight past him, but Jake suddenly grabbed me, trapping me against the wall in a half embrace. I ignored my racing heart and shot him a cool glance. Have you considered the consequences if we get photographed like this and end up as a headline? Jake looked at me, his eyes suddenly turning red. He let out a bitter laugh. Consequences? Getting shelved or blacklisted? Why don't you ask Leo? 6 years ago he forced me to go abroad, and now he's going to force me out of the industry? According to Jake, I learned about a different side of Leo. He was dark, selfish, and even abused his power to get what he wanted. It seemed Leo's shadow loomed over almost every moment Jake and I had spent together. As Jake recounted the memories, the hazy images in the depths of my mind began to take on a blurry shape. In high school, Jake was the big man on campus. Not just because he was handsome, but also because of the unavoidable public apologies he had to make at the weekly school assembly, a stark contrast to my own award-winning speeches. I don't know when it started, but my prejudice against him slowly turned into affection, while Leo, ignoring my wishes, desperately tried to keep me away from him. When Jake taught me to smoke and drink, Leo flipped a table. When Jake helped me sneak out of evening study hall by climbing the wall, Leo would be waiting stone-faced at the bottom to drag me back. When Jake took me street racing on the weekend, Leo would show up at my house beforehand with advanced math problems and force me to study. Whenever Jake tried to kiss me, Leo would always be there to beat him to a pulp. And after high school graduation, Leo used Jake's grandmother's medical bills as leverage to force him to break up with me. He even sent him abroad and forbade him from ever seeing me again. After Jake left, I found an empty private room and sat for a while. I knew that what he said was true. He wouldn't need to lie about things that could be so easily verified. But I still felt like something was off. Growing up, I was always obedient. I didn't seem like the type to do such outrageous things. And hearing it now, I didn't feel like Leo was that wrong, nor was I angry, certainly not to the point of breaking off our relationship. In fact, I found it hard to believe I would even fall for Jake. No matter how I looked at it, Leo was much more my type. Before I could figure it out, I got a text message. Leo had to go to the US for a last-minute business trip and couldn't make it. This wasn't unusual, so I didn't think much of it. I just told him to be safe and went home. I never thought it would blow up like this. A photo was taken of that moment in the hotel hallway, with Jake trapping me in his arms. And not only did Jake not clarify the situation, he leaned into it, writing a long, heartfelt post about our high school romance and how he was still in love with me. The news spread like wildfire, and overnight, we were trending in 8 different categories. I took a quick look. Jake and Khloe love. Jake confesses his love. Leo the home wrecker. The comments were out of control. OMG, I thought Jake was a player, but he's actually a champion of true love. No way, an A-lister being the other man for love. I say just take him back, Ms. Miller. He went abroad alone for 6 years, and now that he's famous, he's bravely fighting against the powerful for love. This is straight out of a novel. Leo is so despicable, keeping the young lovers apart for 6 years. Can't Ms. Miller just get a divorce? Look at our boy, he really loves you. This is ridiculous. They're a legally married couple. What's with all the divorce talk? You people are sick. Business marriages are loveless anyway. I support Ms. Miller getting a divorce. It was a total mess. Leo was still in the US. I had no idea if he'd seen the news. What a disaster. Just when our relationship was finally starting to heal, this had to go and crack it wide open again. The PR department called to ask if I wanted them to handle it. I thought for a moment and said to hold off. The company had a new product launch coming up anyway. We could use this wave of publicity to release it early and save a ton on advertising. I tried to call Leo to explain, but his phone was off. So I left him a message. The news is fake. I'll explain when you get home. The truth is, Leo saw Jake and Khloe in the hotel hallway that night. He didn't just see them in a half embrace, he heard what Jake said. He saw the blush on Khloe's face. She knew now, in a way he never expected. Almost instantly, Leo turned and walked away. In that moment, all he could think of was to run. He was afraid of seeing the disgust and anger in Khloe's eyes again, afraid she would demand a divorce again. So he hastily arranged a business trip and shut off his personal phone. He knew all too well what Khloe would say to him. What kind of look she would give him. He couldn't bear it. Before, he could have told himself to get used to it. But he had already seen the fiery love in Khloe's eyes. How could he go back to enduring the coldness in her gaze? All he could do was run. During his days abroad, he never turned on his personal phone. He worked day and night, trying to numb himself. Until he saw the news. He saw the entire internet shipping Jake and Khloe's throwback romance. He saw how everyone was thrilled at the prospect of their divorce. A deep sense of exhaustion and powerlessness washed over Leo. He should have known. He shouldn't have been so delusional. Khloe would, one day, fall in love with Jake again. Driven by the plot, they would always reunite and fall in love. After all, in this story, they were the destined hero and heroine. And he was just the supporting male character who would never win the heroine's affection. Leo had his awakening in his first year of high school. He had a dream that he was living inside a novel. The heroine of the story was Khloe, but the hero wasn't him. It was Jake, the boy who gave a public apology in front of the whole school every Monday. At first, Khloe clearly disliked him, finding his constant disregard for the rules a major obstacle to her duties as class president. But somewhere along the line, Khloe changed. She started getting closer and closer to Jake. And Leo could only watch from a distance, privately grappling with the fact that Khloe's heart had changed. During college, Jake started a business. Leo secretly helped him a lot, and Jake's company took off quickly. After graduation, the two of them got married. Leo didn't go to the wedding. Instead, he boarded a plane to the company's European branch. He didn't make this choice out of selflessness. On the contrary, he was selfish. Countless times, he wanted to snatch Khloe away, wishing he was the one standing by her side. But he knew that if he did, Khloe would hate him. And he wanted Khloe to be happy. Jake was her choice, and Leo accepted it. He just didn't know that this wasn't a sweet love story with a happy ending. The real ending wasn't a blissful marriage, but the once passionate young man eventually becoming unrecognizable. In the 3rd year of their marriage, Jake cheated. Khloe had given up her career, given up everything to be with him, and he cheated on her. By the time Leo heard the news and rushed back to the country, Khloe had been in a car accident and died at the scene. The story had finally reached its true conclusion. The heroine dies, and the hero is consumed by lifelong regret. Leo went mad, taking revenge on Jake, driving him to bankruptcy, prison, and even leaving him disabled. But what was the point? Khloe wasn't coming back. He finally began to hate himself. Why didn't you fight for her? Why didn't you try to take her? If Khloe had been by his side, this wouldn't have been the outcome. Carrying this regret and pain, Leo woke from the dream and stared at the ceiling until dawn. He thought, whether it was real or not, he had to stop Khloe and Jake from getting together. So he began to interfere. But he underestimated the power of the plot. Khloe still fell in love with Jake and grew to despise Leo more and more. Leo realized it was impossible to break through from Khloe's side. So he started with Jake. He learned that Jake had a sick grandmother and proposed a deal. If Jake went abroad, he would provide the best medical care for his grandmother until she passed away. He succeeded in breaking them up and then timed it perfectly to force Khloe into marrying him. But he never expected Khloe's hatred and disgust for him to be so intense that she wouldn't even spare him a single glance. No matter what he did, he couldn't change it. She would lash out at him with the most vicious, hateful words, as if she were a different person. Leo knew this wasn't his Khloe. She was just being influenced by the plot. Just as the heroine will never fall for the supporting male character. But it didn't matter. At least in this life, Khloe was still vibrant and alive. She had a brilliant career and caring friends. As long as he didn't appear, she was free and happy. Khloe's amnesia was sudden, a scenario Leo had never imagined. It was as if she had reverted to the girl she was before high school. The look in her eyes was warm and sincere, as if the events of the intervening years had never happened. Leo didn't dare to believe it. But he could never resist Khloe. Whatever she wanted, he was willing to give. The week of Khloe's amnesia was the happiest time of Leo's life. Even though she kindly tried to iron his suit and ended up burning a huge hole in a custom-made, multi-$1,000 piece. Even though she kindly made him a special lunch, but ended up sending him to the emergency room because the green beans weren't cooked through. But Leo was happy through it all. He would look at Khloe's burned hand with concern and tell her, "Your hands aren't meant for this kind of work." She had forgotten everything. They had agreed to start a new life. But then Jake reappeared. Under the influence of the plot, she was once again drawn to Jake. Leo stared at the news trending on social media. Khloe hadn't denied anything. Gazing out at the gray New York sky. Leo knew that this time, when he went back, there would likely be a fresh set of divorce papers waiting for him. The new product launch was a huge success, and we all celebrated at a party that night. It was very late by the time I got home. I checked my phone, still no word from Leo. He's been like a clam his whole life, quiet as a mouse. So many years, and he hasn't changed one bit. Over the past few days, I've slowly started to remember a lot of things. That blurry image of a boy in a school uniform was Leo, waiting for me at the intersection day after day so we could walk to school together. His expression was always calm, but his gaze, when he looked at me, was always clear and gentle. In my memory, he never refused any of my requests. The only time he said no was when I spoke a little too much with Jake about some disciplinary issue. That day, he stood in the setting sun, looked down, and said softly, "Khloe, can you stay away from him? I don't like him." I laughed and jumped onto his back. "I'll promise if you carry me home." Leo held my leg steady. "Okay." But in the end, I broke my promise. Whatever. I'll forgive him this time. Once this whole thing is cleared up, I'm going to have to cure him of this non-communicative habit of his. Keeping everything bottled up isn't healthy. When I got home, there was a faint light in the living room. I pushed the door open to find Leo standing by the bar with only a floor lamp on, his figure looking lonely. Hearing the noise, he turned and came over to take my bag. "Why was your phone off the whole time?" Leo lied casually, "It was broken." I couldn't be bothered to argue. I got straight to the point. "Phone was broken, but your internet was working, right? Did you see the news?" Leo's body stiffened. He mumbled a low That's his reaction after seeing the news? I gave him a strange look. "Don't you have anything to say?" Leo hung up my bag, turned to face me, his eyes suddenly full of resolve. Khloe, I'm not divorcing you. I drove Jake away once, I can do it a second time. As long as I'm here, I will never let you be with him. He turned to leave, leaving me stunned. I called after him, stop. I walked up to him, pulled out my phone, tapped it a few times, and shoved it into his hands. You're a CEO, for crying out loud. Why are you getting your news from the tabloids? With that, I went to my room to take a shower. The video I pulled up for Leo was from today's press conference. I skipped past the part about the product and went straight to the Q&A session. Someone had asked me to respond to the recent news. A first love from my youth is in the past. My husband and I have a great relationship now, we are not getting divorced, and I hope you can also move forward. Oh, and by the way, stop calling my husband the other man. Who are you trying to insult? We were both single when we got together. That was all the response needed. I then gave a signal to the moderator, and all subsequent questions were about the company's development and the new product. That fool Leo probably didn't even watch the real news today and was stuck on the old gossip. When I went to the bedroom to shower, I locked the door and took the key with me. I wanted to deliberately keep Leo out of the master bedroom. Teach him a lesson. I never expected the esteemed CEO of Chin Corp to be so good at picking locks. He found a piece of wire from somewhere and opened the door. His eyes were a little red, as if he still couldn't believe it. Is this real? I fished his phone out of his pocket, turned it on, and raised an eyebrow. It's fixed now. I opened his messaging app, where my texts to him were displayed. The news is fake. I'll explain when you get home. Not clarifying yet, using the buzz to push up the product launch. When are you coming back? I'll pick you up. I dreamed about the tomato and egg noodles you made for me in high school. I want to eat them again. Waiting for you to come back and make them for me. I remembered I promised to stay away from Jake, but I didn't. I'm sorry I broke my promise. It won't happen again. I miss you. Leo stared at the screen, his expression shifting from stunned shock to bewilderment, and finally, to ecstatic joy. I handed the phone back to him. Don't get too happy yet. When are you going to fix this habit of yours of hiding things and not communicating? Write a 3,000-word apology, promising to communicate promptly next time. You can sleep in the master bedroom after you're done writing. Leo was surprisingly obedient and turned to leave. I grabbed his hand and pulled out the wire. You know how to do this too. When did you learn? Leo was silent for a moment. The last time you had a fever in the middle of the night, this is how I got in. Never mind. You can just write 1,000 words. Although Leo talked about driving Jake away again, in the end, he only had 2 of his luxury brand endorsements pulled. The Chin Corporation's official channels also ran a PR campaign about our stable marriage. Not only did our family company's stock prices not fall, they actually rose. A month later, we attended a banquet together and ran into his cousin. The same woman who had asked Leo on the phone when he was going to get a divorce. She glanced at my hand linked with Leo's. Can you give me some tips on chasing guys? I've got my eye on a younger guy recently. He's so hard to get. Leo cleared his throat. 'Cause I was the one who chased her. Same difference. As long as you can win them over. After chatting with Leo's cousin for a bit, she was called away. My new shoes were starting to hurt my feet, and I wanted to find a lounge to rest. In the hallway, I ran into Jake again. He looked a little dejected. Khloe, have you really fallen in love with Leo? For some reason, my heart rate always gets a little uneven whenever I see him, but I can't quite put my finger on why. Even though the banquet was very private and I didn't have to worry about being photographed, I still kept a proper distance from him. Isn't it perfectly natural to love your own husband? What's so strange about it? But you used to hate him. I was silent for a moment. Maybe. But that was all in the past. Jake took 2 steps forward, his voice a little hoarse. If you weren't married, would we have had a chance? I thought about it seriously and replied. No. I don't like looking back. The drama of getting back together with an ex is exciting, but it's not for me. One weekend afternoon, I took a nap and had a dream. In the dream, I was the heroine of a novel, and Jake was the male lead. We got together in high school and married after college graduation. After a brief period of happiness, Jake cheated on me. And I died on my way to catch him in the act. After I died, Leo would visit my grave every month, his gaze lowered, his expression cold. When I woke up, my back was drenched in sweat. I finally understood the reason for my racing heart every time I saw Jake. It was the story's built-in, natural pull between the female lead and the male lead. But because of my amnesia, I couldn't remember any of the excitement I felt for him. Instead, all the memories that came back were of my time with Leo. I remembered that blurry image of a boy's back. And the string of numbers I knew by heart when I typed in the door code. It was the date of my first time holding hands with Leo. The details forgotten by the heroine in the story, the feelings replaced by the male lead. They all surfaced after my amnesia, becoming clear. Everything became clear. Jake was the plot's choice. But Leo is my choice. A chance case of amnesia allowed me to break free from the plot's control. When my memory returned to square one, my feelings became a blank slate. The person I was drawn to at first sight was the one I truly loved. I pushed open the door and burst into the study. Leo was reading a book. The afternoon sun streamed in from the window behind him, framing him in a golden halo. He glanced at my bare feet and stood up to lift me into his arms. "Why aren't you wearing shoes?" I hugged his neck, still shaken. I had a nightmare. In my dream, you weren't my hero. You knew all along, didn't you? Leo was silent for a moment, then gave a soft My voice caught in my throat. "I'm sorry." I couldn't imagine how much longer Leo would have had to endure my cold abuse if I hadn't hit my head, if I hadn't lost my memory. He had just waded into my destiny, not knowing anything, and interfered. Silently enduring it all. Leo held me tighter. "It's okay. I know that wasn't your true intention. My Khloe would never speak to me like that." I cried for a long time that day, unable to stop, my heart just ached so much. Finally, at his wits' end, Leo started changing my clothes. I was confused. "Are we going out?" "Yeah, to ride the Ferris wheel." Whenever I used to be sad, I liked to ride the Ferris wheel, staring out and wondering if our car would fall. By the end of one rotation, my mood would usually have lifted. Leo would always go with me. Come to think of it, it's been a long time. I smiled again. "How did you even remember that?" Leo sighed. Finally, a smile. As the Ferris wheel slowly ascended, the city's nightscape gradually spread out beneath our feet. Lights of all colors floated in layers, like a river of flowing stars. I turned my head. Leo was looking down at me. His eyes reflected the twinkling lights and the city's glow, brighter than any star. My heart stirred. I pulled him in and kissed him. The heroine of the story should have the right to choose her own hero.